In a small, quiet town buried beneath a blanket of glistening snow, where the streets lie eerily silent, and each breath hangs like a delicate cloud in the frosty air, a story of hope is quietly unfolding. This is a story of two souls who found each other amid the deepest winter of life. One is Sophie, a young girl whose fragile heart carries the weight of loneliness and hardship. The other is Max, a loyal shepherd dog whose battered body belies a spirit of fierce devotion. Their lives, once filled with despair and isolation, begin to intertwine, illuminating the truth that even in the coldest of times, love and kindness can kindle a miracle. The town was modest, its buildings modest, and its streets deserted as winter reigned supreme. Sophie, only 10 years old, moved silently through the snow-covered alleys and empty sidewalks. Clad in a worn-out coat that had seen better days, her shivering frame was barely sheltered by layers too few for the biting cold. Her shoes, threadbare and patched, trudged along the icy sidewalks as she carried a battered backpack, a vessel of her memories and meager possessions. Sophie's days were marked by quiet desperation. With no family to return to and a heart weighed down by loneliness, she navigated the harsh reality of surviving on the streets. The world as she saw it was unforgiving and cold, a place that had long since forgotten the gentle laughter of a child. Even now, her eyes, so large and hopeful beneath a hardened exterior, sought warmth in every passing face. Yet people hurried by, unaware or unwilling to share the burden of her isolation. In the silence of winter's grip, the sound of crunching footsteps and the distant howl of wind were the only company Sophie had. Each day she searched for scrap materials that could provide a tiny measure of comfort, a piece of wood to mend a broken door, an old blanket to wrap around her shivering shoulders, or even a discarded toy that might remind her of happier days. But her days were also marred by the gnawing pangs of hunger and the constant chill that seemed to seep into her very bones. On one frigid night, when the town's only sounds were the sighs of the wind and the soft rustle of falling snow, Sophie found herself at a deserted bus stop. The weather was harsh, icy gusts whipped through the empty street, and snowflakes danced like silent specters beneath the pale glow of a lone street lamp. Here, beneath an overhang that offered only meager shelter, Sophie settled herself in a corner, shivering in the dark and bitter cold. Huddled against the cold, she clutched a small, frayed blanket, a remnant of her late mother, whose memory was the sole beacon of warmth that had ever graced her heart. With tired eyes and trembling hands, Sophie tried in vain to block out the chill that had become her constant companion. As she sat in the lonely silence, a soft sound cut through the atmosphere, a faint whimper that seemed to echo her own suffering. Startled, she lifted her gaze from the ground and listened. The sound was frail, desperate, a cry of pain and abandonment that resonated in the still night. Compelled by a deep-seated empathy, Sophie rose slowly from her position and followed the sound. Winding her way through dimly lit streets and past drifting piles of snow, Sophie eventually arrived at the edge of a small, neglected park where a metal bus stop sign stood forlornly beside a rusted pole. Tethered to that very pole was a large shepherd dog, a magnificent creature reduced to a shadow of its former self. Max, as Sophie would soon come to call him, was thin and injured, his once strong form now frail and shivering in the bitter cold. Max's fur was matted with a mix of snow and dirt, and his eyes, when they met Sophie's, glistened with a mix of pain and hope. The dog wore a tarnished collar, and on its metal plate was etched a name that stirred something deep within her young heart. In that moment, as she looked upon the wounded soul before her, Sophie recognized the profound echo of a shared abandonment and loneliness. With a tenderness that belied her own hardships, Sophie approached Max. Despite her own shivering body and the fierce hunger in her belly, she knelt beside him. Slowly, as if afraid that any sudden movement might startle him further, she unfolded her precious, faded blanket. This small treasure, once a token of her mother's love, was all she had to offer. Gently, she wrapped the blanket around Max's trembling body, draping it over him as a promise of warmth and care. Softly, with tears pricking her eyes, Sophie whispered, "I'll call you Max. I promise I'll protect you, just like you'll keep me safe." In that tender moment, beneath the cold gaze of the winter sky, an unbreakable bond was forged, a bond that would carry them both through the lonely, icy nights ahead. In the days that followed, Sophie and Max embarked on a remarkable journey of survival and healing, a journey in which each step was taken together. The harsh winter was unrelenting, yet now the once solitary girl found solace in the steadfast presence of her new friend. With Max by her side, every lonely corner of the town seemed a little less desolate. Sophie did everything she could to care for Max. Each morning, she would search for small scraps of food, an apple from a market stall, a forgotten sandwich near a closed diner, sharing whatever little she found with him. With gentle hands and a heartfelt devotion, she tended to Max's wounds using makeshift bandages, and when possible, water and soap from a distant public restroom. In return, Max, though still injured and weakened, offered the comfort of his companionship. He stayed close, often laying his head on her lap as she read faded photographs and scribbled down memories in a tattered notebook. Together, they found refuge in an abandoned market building on the outskirts of town. Amidst the dusty shelves and empty corridors, the building became their temporary home, a shelter from the bitter wind and the remorseless cold. In that forgotten place, Sophie and Max built a small sanctuary of hope. They arranged old blankets into a makeshift bed and shared every scrap of food as if it were a feast. It was here that the first whispers of their extraordinary bond began to echo, carried along by the wind that swept through the empty streets. It was on an evening cloaked in darkness that their fragile peace was violently shattered. Sophie and Max, determined to gather enough food to last through the long winter, ventured out into the nearly deserted town. The cold was especially cruel that night, and as they moved through the darkened streets, an unsettling presence seemed to lurk in the shadows. Suddenly, as Sophie searched for discarded items near an alley, 3 hostile figures emerged from the obscurity of a narrow side street. Their faces, hidden beneath grim expressions and the shadows of hooded jackets, were filled with menace. In harsh, rough voices, they demanded that Sophie surrender whatever little she had, their words laced with threats that chilled her very soul. Fear clutched at her heart, but before they could lay hands on her, Max sprang into action. With a ferocity that belied his injured state, Max leaped forward. His powerful jaws clamped onto one of the assailant's arms as he barked with an intensity that filled the silent night. Startled by the unexpected defense, the 3 men recoiled in terror, their hostile advances dissolving into panicked shouts as they fled into the darkness. Unknown to them, a bystander with a mobile phone had recorded the entire incident. A video, raw and unscripted, captured Max's valiant defense of Sophie, a moment of unyielding loyalty and courage in the face of overwhelming menace. Within hours, the footage spread like wildfire, touching hearts far beyond the quiet town. As the video went viral, the world began to take notice of the unlikely heroes, Sophie and her brave dog, Max. Among those moved by the display of loyalty was Margaret, a kind-hearted bookstore owner known for her compassion and community spirit. Margaret had long been a pillar of support for the vulnerable, and the video stirred something deep within her. Inspired by the raw emotion and courage displayed in that fleeting moment, Margaret set out to find Sophie and Max. Through local tips and community leads, she discovered their whereabouts, a small hidden corner of the town where the two had sought refuge amid the ruins of an abandoned market. With gentle persistence and genuine concern, Margaret approached Sophie. She knelt down to the young girl's level, her eyes filled with kindness and understanding, and softly spoke, "You don't have to be alone anymore. Come with me. I have a place where you can be safe and where you will always be cared for." Sophie, though weary from years of solitude and hardship, felt a spark of hope ignite within her heart. In Margaret's warm, assuring embrace, she recognized a glimmer of light in the long, dark winter of her life. With Max nestled close by her side, Sophie took a tentative step toward a future that promised safety, warmth, and the care she had long been denied. Margaret's bookstore, a quaint haven adorned with shelves brimming with stories of love and adventure, soon became the new home for Sophie and Max. Within those welcoming walls, the battered soul of the young girl and the injured body of her loyal dog found the care they so desperately needed. In this nurturing environment, Sophie began to heal. Margaret ensured that the little girl was provided with warmth, nourishing meals, and a safe bed where nightmares could no longer reach her. Slowly, the harsh memories of winter nights spent in bitter cold and solitude began to be replaced by moments of gentle comfort and loving care. Meanwhile, Max received the medical attention he required. The local veterinarian, Dr. Clara Bennett, a compassionate and skilled healer, took special care of the loyal dog. Under her meticulous treatment, Max's wounds were cleaned and bandaged, while medications and rest allowed him to recover gradually from the scars of abandonment and neglect. As days turned into weeks, both Sophie and Max experienced the tender, transformative power of care. In the quiet hours of the evening, as the last rays of the winter sun filtered through the bookstore's frosted windows, they would curl up together in a soft bed of blankets, their silence speaking volumes of the deep bond they shared. In the safety of their new home, Sophie and Max began to blossom. The relationship that had once been a matter of survival evolved into one of genuine companionship and healing. For Sophie, Max was more than just a loyal dog. He was a friend, a guardian, and a beacon of hope who had remained by her side when the world had turned its back. Each morning, as gentle light broke across the horizon and filled the bookstore with a warm golden glow, Sophie and Max embarked on small adventures. Whether it was a short walk through a nearby park dusted with fresh snow or a quiet moment spent curled up with a well-loved book, every moment became a thread in the intricate tapestry of their shared life. Sophie, once a solitary, scared child, began to open up. She shared stories of her past, with whispered details of a life that had been marred by loss and cold indifference, and slowly, her eyes began to shine with hope. Max, ever watchful and supportive, offered silent affirmations, with every wag of his tail and every gentle nuzzle against her cheek. Together they were healing, each comforting the other as they paved the way to a brighter future. Within the walls of the bookstore, the community too began to take notice. Neighbors who once passed by without a second glance now greeted Sophie with kind smiles and warm words, touched by the young girl's resilience and the remarkable loyalty of her canine companion. Max became an emblem of bravery, his story resonating with those who understood the true meaning of unconditional love. As Sophie slowly emerged from the shadows of her painful past, a profound change began to take hold within her. No longer content to remain silent, the little girl, now growing into a determined adolescent, found her voice. Inspired by her own journey and the newfound support of her community, Sophie began to speak out about the challenges faced by homeless children, the harsh realities of a society that often turned a blind eye to the vulnerable. At community gatherings and small local events, Sophie, supported always by the comforting presence of Max at her side, shared her story with honest vulnerability. She recounted the icy nights, the hunger, the fear of living in a world that had forgotten her. Yet, she also spoke of the hope that had been rekindled by a simple act of kindness, a moment when she found a shivering dog at a desolate bus stop and, in that gesture, discovered the power of love. Her words resonated with many, sparking conversations and prompting a call to action. Local charities, inspired by her story, began to mobilize efforts to provide shelter and support for homeless children. Sophie's tale, once one of quiet despair, became a rallying cry, a reminder that even in the darkest winters, the smallest flame of courage can light the way to a new beginning. Amid these changes, Max continued to be a steadfast guardian. Even as his physical wounds healed, his protective instincts remained sharp. One cold evening, while Sophie was heading home from a community center meeting filled with hope and promise, an unexpected threat emerged. A group of ruffians, emboldened by ignorance and malice, attempted to intimidate her on a dimly lit street. In that critical moment, Max, sensing danger, leaped forward without hesitation. With a courage born from years of surviving harshness and neglect, Max barked fiercely and lunged at the would-be attackers. His brave intervention not only scared the assailants away, but also reinforced the deep bond between him and Sophie. Though Max sustained minor injuries during the encounter, his valiant act further cemented his place as a hero in Sophie's heart and in the eyes of all who learned of his deed. The story of Max's unwavering protection spread through the town, serving as a powerful symbol of resilience, loyalty, and the enduring connection between a child and her friend. The community's admiration for Max and for the indomitable spirit of the girl who had once wandered alone in the cold grew with every retelling of their story. In time, the extraordinary journey of Sophie and Max reached far beyond the borders of their small town. News outlets picked up the tale of a homeless girl whose survival was anchored by the love and bravery of a devoted dog. In interviews filled with tearful sincerity, Sophie shared her experiences, and Max's heroic moments were celebrated as beacons of hope in a world that sometimes forgot its most vulnerable souls. One chilly winter day, a ceremony was organized by community leaders and local supporters. The event, held in the town square beneath a sky clear and bright, despite the lingering cold, was a tribute not only to the bravery of Max, but also to the resilience and determination of Sophie. Amid the soft murmur of gratitude and the collective cheer of the gathered crowd, Max was honored with a prestigious medal, a symbol of his heroism, his loyalty, and the transformative power of second chances. Sophie, standing proudly beside her faithful companion, felt a surge of hope and belonging. In that moment, as the community's applause washed over her, she realized that her story, one that began in the shadows of despair, had grown into a testament to the strength that blossoms when hearts are nurtured by love and acceptance. Margaret, the compassionate bookstore owner who had first reached out to Sophie and Max, spoke gently to the gathered crowd. "Let their story remind us all," she said, "that even when life seems unbearably cold and dark, a spark of kindness can create a fire of hope that warms us all." Her words resonated deeply, uniting the crowd in a shared understanding of the profound impact one act of compassion can have. The days turned into months, and the harsh winter slowly gave way to the tender promise of spring. Within the warm embrace of Margaret's bookstore and the caring arms of a supportive community, Sophie began to flourish in ways she had never imagined. Enrolled in school and eager to learn, she discovered the joy of friendships, the comfort of routine, and the thrill of new beginnings. Max, now a symbol of unwavering loyalty and heartfelt courage, settled into his role as not only Sophie's protector, but also her emotional support. His once thin frame gradually filled out under careful care and nourishment, and the scars of his past began to fade beneath layers of healing and love. Every day, as Sophie attended school, Max remained at her side, quietly vigilant, his eyes reflecting the unspoken promise to always guard the child who had rescued his heart as much as she had saved his soul. In the gentle rhythms of a town reborn, Sophie's life transformed. Her painful past, marked by the icy isolation of homelessness, was slowly replaced by laughter, learning, and the warmth of a community that embraced her. She began to tell her story, to speak out about the challenges faced by homeless children, to raise awareness about the need for compassion and support for the marginalized. Her words, sincere and heartfelt, resonated with audiences far and wide, inspiring countless others to lend a helping hand to those in need. Years passed, and Sophie grew from a fragile, homeless child into a confident, compassionate teenager. Now a young woman, she often sat by the window of her modest but warm room in Margaret's home, reflecting on the long and winding road that had brought her to this place of hope and healing. Beside her, Max, ever faithful and dignified despite his age, lay curled up on a soft cushion, a living reminder of the journey they had shared and the love that had sustained them through even the darkest winters. As Sophie gazed out at a world that was no longer as cold and indifferent as it once had been, she recalled the long, lonely nights spent wandering silent streets and the fateful moment at a deserted bus stop when she first encountered the injured dog who would become her lifeline. The memory of that day, of the small frayed blanket wrapped carefully around Max, of the promise whispered in the silence of the falling snow, filled her with gratitude and bittersweet nostalgia. With Max's once fierce eyes now softened by time and tenderness, Sophie knew that their bond was something extraordinary, a bond formed in the crucible of hardship, tempered by the unwavering belief that love can overcome even the harshest of fates. She resolved to honor their shared past by speaking out, by fighting for those who had been forgotten, and by never allowing the light of kindness to be snuffed out in a world that too often seemed intent on darkness. In quiet moments, as the soft strains of an old melody filled the room, Sophie would trace her fingers over the medal that had once been placed around Max's neck, an emblem of his heroism and their unbreakable connection. And together, they would step outside into the gentle embrace of an awakening spring, where every blossom and every bird's song whispered promises of renewal and enduring hope. Today, the story of Sophie and Max continues to inspire countless hearts. In a small town that once lay silent under the weight of winter's cold despair, their journey stands as a timeless reminder that love, loyalty, and kindness are the strongest forces of all. Through every hardship and every triumph, Sophie and Max have shown that even in the bleakest of moments, there is a light that can guide us home. Their lives, once defined by survival against all odds, have blossomed into a beacon of hope for those who believe in second chances. Sophie, who once wandered alone under starless skies, now shares her voice with conviction, championing the cause of homeless children and the forgotten souls in need of care. Max, whose protective instincts had once saved her life, remains by her side, a faithful guardian whose silent devotion speaks volumes of the power of compassion and the beauty of unwavering friendship. In the quiet corners of the community, a bookstore filled with stories of love, our school where dreams take flight, and the gentle smiles of neighbors who have learned to open their hearts, Sophie and Max remind us that every life matters. Their journey is not just a tale of survival, it is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of a kind deed. It teaches us that even when the world seems shrouded in snow and silence, the warmth of love can melt away the coldest of barriers. As the seasons change and the years move forward, the legacy of Sophie and Max grows ever stronger. It endures in every act of kindness, every heartfelt embrace, and every community that rises to help its most vulnerable members. Their story is a gentle, persistent echo, a reminder that when we share our love and extend our hand to those in need, we make the world a little brighter, a little kinder, and infinitely more hopeful. And so, as Sophie, now a thoughtful and courageous young woman, stands with Max at her side, they continue to walk forward together. A journey of healing, of courage, and of love serves as a testament to all who believe in the power of second chances. For in the end, it is the bonds we forge and the love we share that light our way through even the darkest times. As the soft glow of twilight descends upon the town, Sophie and Max make their way along a quiet street, their silhouettes a gentle promise of hope and renewal. The once cold and lonely paths have become avenues of possibility, where every step forward is celebrated, and every shared smile is a victory over the pain of the past. May their story remind us all that even when life seems unbearable, when darkness looms large and the world turns its back, the smallest acts of kindness can spark a flame that grows into a beacon of hope. Sophie and Max, bound by a love that defies hardship and nourished by the warmth of community, are living proof that healing and second chances are never beyond our reach. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. If this story has touched your heart, please like, comment, and share your own experiences of love, loyalty, and resilience. Let the story of Sophie and Max inspire you to believe in the power of love and the unbreakable bonds that light our way through life's coldest winters. If you were moved by this tale, please subscribe to our channel for more inspirational stories. Share your thoughts and your own experiences of overcoming adversity and the miracles that can arise when we open our hearts to those in need. Together, we can spread hope, kindness, and the belief that every life has the power to shine even in the darkest of times.